And thank you so much for joining me here at WHX Tech for a brief discussion about how the hospital where you lead clinical applications is using AI.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how are you using AI and what has changed in the last 2 years with the generative AI?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that's changed over the past 2 years that has been so different from anything else I've seen in digital health is the excitement that our clinicians have, our surgeons, our radiologists, our nurses, to start using some of these AI tools. They're actually coming to us, asking us to implement these tools for them rather than us going to them and saying, please, try and use this tool. So, yeah.
So how many of those desires can you fulfill? How many applications have you implemented in the last few years?
Yeah, for sure. So because it's a relatively new technology, we are being fairly cautious with the way we're rolling it out. We have experimented with AI scribe along with a number of other hospitals in our jurisdiction. And that it's gone relatively well. We're monitoring it very closely, collecting data to make sure that it's safe. We haven't yet ventured into some of the more decision support AI tools, clinical decision support, just because, again, we want to be cautious. So yeah, AI scribe is kind of where we're focusing at the moment.
What are the biggest safety concerns that you have?
So with more of the decision support tools, it's just around the impact of patient care, and the impact increases more when you have decision support versus something that's just kind of listening to a conversation and scribing, and the clinician is reviewing that anyway. If you have a tool that's spitting out a potential diagnosis or a course of treatment, it just comes with more risk and would require the clinicians to spend more time, thus adding to their burden rather than alleviating it. And so that's why we're kind of being very slow to roll those out.
Can you compare the implementation of a generative AI tool compared to other pieces of software in the hospital? You mentioned that clinicians are coming to you for these tools. How does the whole, getting clinical champions, getting the buy-in from clinicians, and maybe even the timeline for implementation differ between the traditional IT solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would actually say that they're very similar in terms of the path that we have to take as an IT team to roll these tools out. So again, being very mindful of change management processes, what we did with our electronic medical record when we rolled that out, making sure there's training, making sure there's champions, making sure there's, lots of support around the clinician. It's the exact same thing with AI. And in fact, maybe even more so, we need to make sure there's literacy, not just for the clinicians, but for the patients as well, because now their data is going to be used in a different way. So similar process and considerations. I would say slower to roll it out, just again, because it's new and you just do a few and then maybe you can pick up the pace.
Interesting, because I would assume that it's faster because of the hunger for these tools.
Absolutely, yes, and the rapid pace of innovation and everything that's coming into the market. But I think we need to be responsible within our healthcare system to make sure that we're tempering that with safe rollout of tech and keeping in mind patient safety, keeping in mind monitoring of data to make sure that the tools are functioning as expected.
How do you solve the business equation when it comes to generative AI tool? Where does the funding come from? What's the business model for the use of tools after the initial introduction phase?
Yeah. I think that's actually probably the biggest challenge with rolling out AI tools. They're so expensive, and at least in Canada, we're a publicly funded healthcare system, so our operating budgets just don't have the space. So we're having to be creative. There are grants available. There's government funding available specifically to adopt AI tools. We're tapping into wherever we can find funding from. But again, that's a one-time funding. For implementation, we do need to think about sustainability, and those are kind of ongoing discussions that are happening at the moment.
So do you have any tips for other hospitals in terms of how to turn, the investment to just the regular cost structure of the hospital?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to be creative. You have to look for every solution, put it on the table. And and evaluate it. Don't just kind of get stuck in old funding models and the way we used to do things. There might be other ways of doing things to get these really powerful tools into the hands of our clinicians.
Is there anything that you look forward to in the upcoming years? Or what do you expect is going to come in the clinical application space with AI?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited about is the potential for this to alleviate cognitive burden on clinicians and help them deliver better care to patients. I think that there's a lot of potential, but to realize that it will take a lot of time. So hopefully we'll get there soon.
And thank you so much for sharing the insights.
Thank you for having me.